Hello, Home Slices. It's Kiara with Home Slice Adulting coming to you with my review for Iyanla Fix My Life, Season 6, Episode 16, titled Strangled by Love, featuring Demetrius and RaAnne. Now, before I jump into the meat and potatoes of my review, I would like to say thank you for clicking on this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. So let's just hop right in. Similar to the way that I've been doing my other videos lately, I'm just gonna watch a little bit of the show and then come back to you all with what I think. So I'll be going, back and forth between watching the show and doing my review because I'm over taking notes. So I just watched the first part of this particular episode, and so we have Demetrius, who is a black man who is married to RaAnne, who is a white woman. They have three children from previous relationships, and then they have two children together. And apparently they are having some problems with forgiveness, problems with communication, problems with verbal and physical abuse. Their relationship started out a little interesting. Apparently, RaAnne was dating one of Demetrius's friends, and she said she had a baby with somebody who was not Demetrius, and the way Demetrius treated her baby, and had like this father-like energy, made her fall in love with him. So I wonder if there was any overlap between RaAnne dating Demetrius's friend and dating Demetrius. So we all know that relationships that start out with a rocky premise usually don't go swimmingly, in the future. So moving on. Yeah, they have problems with alcoholism. Sounds like RaAnne was dealing with some heavy drinking to the point where she wouldn't come home some nights because her friends would not allow her to drive. And while it's great that she had the type of friends that are like, okay, no, we're not letting you go home, it would also be great if her friends were like, no, you don't need that next drink, or no, you're not going to drink when you come over to my house, right? So anyways, not passing any judgment or anything. Demetrius had a problem with RaAnne drinking. I'm under the impression that RaAnne had a problem with Demetrius going to jail for 18 months and leaving her to take care of all of their kids by herself, especially since I think she had one of their children while he was away in jail. So she has a new baby and she's doing it by herself. And when he comes back, he's a different person, according to her. And it's like, she's better than me. Because, like, how dare you have me hold down our household for 18 months, and when you come back, you try to choke me out and call me all of these B words and all that kind of stuff. How dare you, okay? So, anyways, we're to the point where Iyanla says to them that, asked about who's wearing the pants in the relationship. And I have always had an issue with traditional gender roles in relationships, and particularly in marriages. Growing up as a Christian woman, there are definite things that people feel, in the Christian community that women should do versus what men should do. And that is also, informed by society's view of what a woman's role is in a heterosexual relationship, at least, versus a man's role. So for me, I've always had an issue with that because I felt like it's misogynistic, and it definitely is. The man gets this lauded role of being the provider, and because he's bringing in money, he basically doesn't have to do anything around the house. His involvement with the kids is limited, and he just gets to go to work and come home and do nothing. That's the most extreme version of that. And for me, it's like, I don't have time for that. Like, as a working woman who contributes to the household, who pays 50% of the bills, and who is going to school at the same time, there's no way that I could be getting my graduate degree part-time, working full-time, and taking care of a house full-time as well. The person that I'm with has to be more involved in taking care of the household chores, taking care of the dog, eventually, and having children, taking care of the kids, making sure, that they have a great relationship with the kids, and the kids don't only, see him when he's not at work, and, all that. Like, I have always had philosophical problems with the way gender roles are assigned in marriages. So, one of the things that Iyanla said that I agree with is that every marriage and relationship has to have these types of rules and understandings of your roles. So for me, while I don't necessarily like or have, any interest in conforming to very the misogynistic old school way of dividing up roles in the household, there are things that need to get done, and we need to have an understanding, me and the person that I'm with need to have an understanding of how they are going to get done. So whether you subscribe to regular gender roles or you don't, there needs to be some basic understanding of what's going on in the house. So it appears that they both agree in their marriage that they would like for Demetrius to wear the pants and not RaAnne. And what it sounds like to me, just from the little bit that I've seen of this episode, is that when Demetrius went away to prison for 18 months, she had to put on the pants in the house and in the relationship, and she just hasn't given them back to him ever since he returned from prison. So, that's understandable, I think. And if you think about it in biblical terms, like in the Bible, in, one of the earliest chapters, don't quote me on, the actual scripture. It's definitely in Genesis in the earlier chapters where it was like, a woman is going to always want to rule over her husband. It's in the Bible. So I don't know why people are like surprised by that. It's in there. But anyways, I could talk about gender roles all the time. Like those traditional gender roles don't work for me. As far as who wears the pants in the relationship, that's still a touchy topic for me as well. That's a discussion that I have had and will continue to have with my current boyfriend. But it appears that in their relationship, they want Demetrius to wear the pants, and they're going to do a fun obstacle course. I always love the physical demonstrations of these emotional problems that Iyanla does. So we'll see how well RaAnne can get Demetrius through these obstacles, okay? All right. And we're back. So we see RaAnne and Demetrius do 2 physical exercises to kind of show each other what it's like to lead the other when the other person has to have complete faith in you, right? So we see that Miss RaAnne has to lead Demetrius through an obstacle course while he is blindfolded. And so she has to get him from the top of the stairs, around some ropes, and there's some obstacles and ladders and stuff like that he has to get through. And it's clear that she's having a hard time doing this because they're not on the same page when it comes to certain words like scoot and move and reach. And she wasn't being very clear about her instructions. And once you feel like somebody doesn't know what they're doing, that means that you trust them less, right? And that's, to me, if I'm going through an obstacle course and I'm blindfolded and I feel like we're not doing well because you aren't giving me clear instructions, I'm more likely to trust myself, even though I can't see what's going on, than I am to trust you. So that may have been something that was going on. But anyways, so they finally get through the obstacle course. It would have been interesting to see how long it took her to get him through it. But anyways, next, we see them do another exercise where RaAnne has to stand behind and be blindfolded, stand behind Demetrius and make a sandwich that looks like another sandwich, right? And so, to be honest, the sandwich looked pretty similar. And it was funny how Iyanla was saying how Demetrius's belly was kind of getting in the way of the whole thing. But I feel like he did a good job in directing her, because those sandwiches were, while it wasn't as neat, the fact that the tomatoes and olives or whatever was on the skewer was on in the correct order, I feel like he did a pretty good job. And he, after that whole situation happened, Iyanla was saying, what is the distinction that you make between being in control and being a leader? And, he kind of confessed that he didn't really have a distinction. And I think that's an interesting I think that's an interesting thing. What is the distinction between being a leader and being in control? And for me, the first thing that comes to mind is that a leader is collaborative, and a person who is controlling, or a person who likes to control things, is a dictator. And they don't understand being in relationship with someone, collaborating with someone to get something done, as opposed to just barking orders and expecting it to be perfect and done right away. A leader, a lot of times, leads by example, right? And so in leading by example, a leader is willing to get their hands dirty, whereas a controller isn't. So that's the distinction for me. But if that topic comes up again in this episode, I'll be interested to hear what Demetrius or Iyanla has to say about it. But anyways, Iyanla gets to the point where she's like, I need to hear their individual stories and see who they are as individuals before we have a discussion about who they are together. And so she sits down with RaAnne, and RaAnne tells her that basically she doesn't respect Demetrius, and that after Demetrius came home from jail and started calling her all types of names and putting his hands on her, she just doesn't respect him. And do you know how hard it is to take off the pants and hand them off to somebody that you don't respect? It's like impossible. RaAnne admits that she wears the pants, and there's no way she's going to let go of that for a person that she doesn't respect. And Demetrius hasn't been living up to her expectations, and unfortunately, as a result, she doesn't respect him. And so apparently she had an abusive childhood, and we'll get into that some more. But like, my overall thoughts is that I think that Demetrius is capable of being a leader, but the physical violence definitely has to be cut out. The communication has to be improved. The trust has to be improved, especially for RaAnne to Demetrius, and maybe they can work through it, but we'll see. All right, so we're back now. Now we are at sorry, y'all, my dog had to go out. Anyways, so we just got through watching the second, or the third, I don't know, one of the parts of Iyanla Fix My Life, and we have RaAnne, who goes on to tell us about how she was sexually abused in her household. They bleeped out the name of the person, but based on context clues, I'm going to assume that it was some type of adult male family member. But anyways, apparently they sexually assaulted her when she was 12, and that she remembers her childhood being very violent, and that basically nobody protected her from that. And so Iyanla's understanding of it is that when she experiences abuse from her husband, and then her husband wants to have, sex with her the next night, it just brings her back to her childhood, and that it's not okay for him to do those type of things. And so it feels like RaAnne has spoken to him at length about what this particular male family member has done to her, and I think for the first time, Iyanla is bringing to his attention that his behavior kind of mirrors that of the person who abused her, and hopefully that will open his eyes and make him realize that he doesn't need to be putting his hands on his wife, And but anyways, we see Miss RaAnne is still kind of reeling, and is still upset about the thing that happened to her, as she should be, and that hopefully this will begin kind of a healing process for her. But moving on from that, her husband Demetrius says that he needs to learn how to be the man, and Iyanla agrees with him. And while I am not a huge fan of the phrase "man up," because I feel like it can reinforce some ideals of toxic masculinity, just in my own personal opinion, my thought is it's in this situation that it might be a good idea for him to figure out some stuff with regards to how he is in his marriage, and the things that he's supposed to be taking charge of, and the things that he wants his wife to trust him to be able to do. and that maybe instead of saying man up, like grow up would be better. And that's like, grow up, handle your business as an adult. But anyways, we'll get back to them and see, what happens next. Okay, and now we are back, and we are with both RaAnne and Demetrius, and they face each other, and they're, trying to have this hard conversation. It starts out with them asking each other for forgiveness. Demetrius is asking for forgiveness for the physical abuse, for the verbal abuse, and RaAnne is asking for forgiveness for the alcoholism and not really understanding that she had some of her own issues that she was dealing with from the trauma that she experienced as a child, and that she was using the alcohol to numb her pain, and unfortunately it was damaging her relationship with her husband. So they start off there. Another thing that they get ready to talk about is Demetrius saying that he wants to take the lead in the relationship, but when he tries to, RaAnne interferes because she doesn't like the way that he is doing it or the way that he is going about it. And he gives an example specifically about their 13-year-old son, who apparently has behavioral issues with teachers and and saying and doing whatever he wants. And one of the things that he said was that whenever he's ready to have this conversation with his son about his behavior, that RaAnne interferes, or that he knows that she's going to interfere, and she's like, no, that's not true. And Demetrius just gets really frustrated because for him, that's what the truth is. His experience of her is that whenever he's ready to sit down with his son and have conversations about his behavior or whatever, RaAnne is going to, come to the rescue and interfere. And she's saying, I know that that's his experience, but that's not really what happens. And so Iyanla was like, y'all have kids. They have 5 kids together. And she's like, y'all are acting like teenagers. Y'all have 5 children who are watching your behavior. I'm pretty sure that they have seen or heard the verbal abuse in these arguments. And when you grow up in a household where your parents or the people who are taking care of you, or whoever, the adults in the household, are experiencing abuse or abusing one another, speaking poorly of one another, cursing each other out, you grow up believing that that is normal. And even if you consciously try to make a decision to not be like those people, it's still in you. And then one day you wake up and realize, oh, I'm doing the exact same thing that my parents did, that I vowed that I would never do. And so with them having so many people, 5 children in their house, watching them, watching their actions, and all that jazz, they have to be very careful about not passing that down to their own children. So let's see what happens next. Okay, that was quick. So we have RaAnne, who has called Iyanla to her room because she is experiencing even more upset recalling the things that has happened to her as a child. And we find out that even prior to the sexual trauma that she has already made us privy to, her first sexual abuse situation happened when she was 5 years old. Apparently he was a neighbor of her babysitter's. And it's like, what the heck? That's one thing I just can't get with sexual abuse. It is one of the more infuriating things to me, just as a person and as a woman, to know that so many people, particularly so many women, have been through this type of trauma, and how life-changing and difficult it is, and how one person's inappropriateness or indiscretion or inability to control themselves, their impulses, their need for power and control, can just mess up somebody's life for years to come. RaAnne is 43 years old. She is still dealing with the trauma of things that happened to her when she was 5. That's 38 years of suppressing and not dealing with the memory of what happened to her as a 5-year-old young lady. And I just I just really wish that when it came to sexual abuse, that our justice system was a lot better about that. That our justice system didn't have to make it so difficult for people who are victims to come forward. To me, it's like it's just such a shame that there are so many young women and young men who are abused over and over again. Their abusers abuse so many people, just because they feel this shame, whether it's society, from their abusers, whether it's from the legal system, that they just won't come forward to have their accuser pay for their crimes. And that's just something that I cannot abide. I can't get with that. And it's just so unfortunate that it has happened to RaAnne, and that she has been dealing with the ramifications of all of that stuff in her marriage. And it's just very unfortunate. And I think that Iyanla is spot on when she says that RaAnne, after she leaves Iyanla, needs to continue to seek help. She needs to go to therapy. She needs to do whatever she needs to do to make sure that she gets better. Because one of the things that she said on an earlier part of the show was that if you have trauma, like serious trauma that you are dealing with, if you get into a marriage without healing it, it's definitely going to impact your marriage. Like, are you really ready to get married when you have so much trauma and baggage that's going to come along with it, that's going to impact your marriage? Are you ready to get married? You're willing, but are you ready? Are you ready to put this person through the things that you are going to put them through? Because you haven't forgiven, or you haven't let go, or you haven't healed from that trauma. And I think that's a fair question that a lot of people don't ask. And for myself, it makes me examine, I have been in a relationship for 4.5 years now, and we have been talking about marriage. And it makes me question if there are unresolved things inside of here that I need to get resolved before I take that next step, or before we take that next step. And I think that's a question that my boyfriend needs to answer as well. But anyways, moving on, she talks to Demetrius and asked him if he's really dealt with the trauma of being abandoned. His mother left him by a mailbox, and he was raised by his aunt. And, figuring out if he's really dealt with his abandonment issues from his mom. And, he says no. A lot of times we have these avoidant tendencies. We have avoidant behavior. And instead of discussing or working through, or getting therapy for our issues, we just avoid them because we figure we've been okay this long. Why not continue down this road when even if you bury it, it does do damage to you. It does show up in different areas of your life. So that's where we are right now. We'll be back, and I think that it will be like the last time we're back. All right, y'all. So this is me wrapping up my review of this particular episode of Iyanla Fix My Life. And so we are sitting down with RaAnne, Iyanla. Wait, no. We're going to go back. I'm sorry. We have Iyanla sitting down with Demetrius after he, has time to kind of really feel and think about how he hasn't healed from the abandonment he experienced regarding his mother. And, they're sitting down face to face. And Iyanla says to him the same thing that she says to a lot of her guests. And that is, you are still healing, or you are still reeling, rather, from the issues that you have experienced as a child. And you are still acting like you are that little boy that was abandoned by his mother, and he has been running your life when you need that little boy to grow up. So once you can heal from those situations, then you can grow and become the man that you're supposed to be, and as a result, your marriage will be stronger. And so she sits down with both of them over what looks like a delicious breakfast, and has a conversation with them regarding a Venn diagram, where it's like, two circles, a you circle, a me circle, and then they meet in the middle to form an us part of the Venn diagram. And I'm basically saying that if you don't bring all of yourself, a healed, complete, whole part of yourself to your marriage, the marriage is not going to work. So you all need to take an intermission from trying to make your marriage work and work on yourselves as individuals. And I think that I have never heard it put that way. And by intermission, she didn't necessarily mean separation. She didn't necessarily mean divorce, or move out of the house or anything like that. It was like, you all need to work on yourselves first. And when you work on yourself, you can show up and be better in the marriage. And I think that a lot of times, people can get lost in relationships, and everything that you are and everything that you have been gets invested into who you are as a couple, and people kind of lose themselves as individuals. And so what Iyanla is saying is, hey, you need to focus on yourselves as individuals, and as a result, your marriage will become stronger. And I think that was a good lesson. Now, to echo some of the things that I have heard from other people who review this show, is that a lot of things in this episode have been repeated on previous episodes. And while I enjoyed this episode, and there were things that I found that, were applicable to me personally, it's getting to the point where it's kind of repetitive. And a lot of the guests seem to have similar issues to guests before. And, honestly, there's nothing new under the sun. But I think in order for Iyanla's show to continue to thrive, we need to kind of see something new. And so I feel like I haven't necessarily seen anything new since this season has returned. And that's kind of what I'm waiting for. So hopefully, because, virtually everybody on every episode, there are probably just a handful of episodes in Iyanla where nobody has been sexually abused at all, or at least in their childhood. A lot of people on this show have experienced abandonment by family members. A lot of people have childhood trauma, and I don't know that Iyanla is presenting things to us in a way that we haven't seen before. And so my hope is that there are new stories, unique situations. Like, my thought is, like, what if she goes into a jail and does, a healing type of seminar, workshop, or whatever with some of the inmates? Or what if she can do it in a halfway house or whatever. But even then, there was an episode where she did that with, convicted murderers who had gotten out of prison. And it's like, as much as I really enjoy the show, and as much as I really like Iyanla, it is still a show. It is still entertainment, and it has to be new and improving every season. And so that's my hope for the show. But overall, I like this episode. I like the idea that we have to work on ourselves as individuals before we can be part of a couple. I, have to examine myself and see if there are childhood traumas that I experienced that I need to heal from and get over with before I take the next step in my relationship. And, figuring out what I would like my role to be in my relationship, and figuring out, what those roles are between me and my partner. So that's going to be all. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be on the lookout for some more videos. I want to do more videos on YouTube, but I'm at this stage where I'm doing quite a bit of research for opening my online business. My hope is to have it up and running in like the next 2 weeks or so, because there are legal stuff that legal things that I have to do that takes some time to process, such as getting my business incorporated and getting a business license from the state that I'm in and all that jazz. And so all that has to happen before I can open the online store. So I am designing my products. I think I've kind of zeroed in, and I'm having dreams about the type of business that I want to open. And when I wake up in the morning, I have ideas, and it feels like I've narrowed in on the niche for my product. And I'm just really happy about that. And even though I've been experiencing like a sort of dissatisfaction with another relationship in my life, and I talked about that on my last episode, or my last installment of my driving home vlog series, but having this project be a part of my life, it's kind of offsetting that. And having this one area of my life where I am totally in control of my destiny, this area of my life where I am like in the lane that feels the best. I don't know, there's something very fulfilling about it. And today I managed to get a lot of stuff done. It's only 2:30. I assembled a desk that we had ordered because we didn't have a desk in our house. I'm washing and folding clothes. I cleaned the kitchen, and I feel like, yeah, I'm getting stuff accomplished. And I did a review. So I feel good. I feel happy. So I hope you all are having a great day as well. Peace out, home slices.